Hello and welcome to this video presentation on cash flow, brought to you by the Mississippi Small Business Development Centers. This presentation is designed to introduce and help break down the topic of cash flow for a beginning business. The MSBDC is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. All opinions, conclusions, or recommendations expressed are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the SBA.
Okay, well, Precious, I got your email, got the business plan in, went through, and of course, I reviewed it, edited it. I made a couple of suggestions for changes on there, and I emailed that back to you. So if you'll make those, I think the written description of your business is fine. Okay, so, but pull that up, and look at those changes, address those two items, and you have a rock solid written description of your business. Okay. Now the second thing that we're gonna work on right now is we're going to work on a cash flow projection. And I like to start off and just do a 1 month cash flow projection. And what this is the first month that you are actually in business. That's what we're going to do the projection on. Okay. And what we're going to do is to go through, plug in some sales numbers, figure out what your expenses are going to be, look at how much money is left over, and see numbers wise, does this make sense? Okay, does it make sense? And then from there, if it does make sense and you want to go ahead and apply for that business loan, we have to do this for 24 months. But the first thing we do to get the baseline is we'll just go through and do a 1 month. Okay? So if you look at the top, we have sales number 1, sales number 2. Okay? Now, are you going to be offering or charging like a enrollment fee or a sign-up fee or that kind of thing? No. Okay. So it's just going to be the monthly sales total.
Right.
Okay. Or what they pay per month or per week. Okay. So now I know that we had gone through and figured out. I think you could take 96 kids total, and we projected that your first month that you were open, and we've already started pre-selling a little bit, right? We think you're probably going to be at about 50% capacity the first month that you open your doors. Right. Is that correct? Okay. Okay, so we're projecting the first month you're going to have 48 kids enrolled, correct? And you're going to be getting, on average, $100 a week. Right. Is that right? Okay, so I'm going to take 100 times 4, so that is 400 per month times 48 kids. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so that's $19,200. So in the very top right here, I want you to write in $19,200 in sales. That's what's going to come in. And then why don't you put a little dash, and let's put 48 kids, 48 times 100 times 4, or times 400. There you go. Okay, so that's where we got that number from. And then you might just put, when we know that 48 kids, you're at 50% capacity, and we feel pretty confident that by the time you actually open your doors, you're going to have at least 48 kids, correct? Based on the pre-selling that you've been doing. Okay, so we have 9,200 comes in, and then we need to figure out what the expenses are going to be. Okay, now this is going to take a little bit of homework on your part. If you have if you have 48 kids that are in there, we need to figure out, I think we're going to put this expense under material cost. What is it going to cost you in food products to feed 46 or 48 kids? Okay? So you're probably going to need to do a little bit of research. I might check with people that are in another kind of that are not in competition with you, maybe other daycare owners, and figure out what their average charge is for, or what their average expense is per kid, food costs, that kind of thing. But we need to figure out, okay, if we have 48 kids enrolled, what's our material cost, and we're just going to put that, or our food cost going to run per month. Okay. Second thing we need to figure out is labor. Okay, if you have 48 kids in your daycare, how many people do you have to have working? I think that we had done some initial research, and it was something like you had to have like 6 people.
I have to have 6. I'm gonna have 8.
Okay.
I'm gonna have 8.
Okay. So if you need to figure out, okay, if I have 8 people, how many hours are they going to work? How much am I going to pay them per hour? And what's that total going to run the first month?
Okay.
Okay. Now, of course, as your number of kids that you have enrolled goes up, then your staffing requirements go up. Correct? Okay. So need to get that material cost, and really, I think we're just going to label that the cost of the food to feed the kids in the daycare, and then your staffing needs, that's going to go under labor. Management, we're going to hold off on. We're not sure how much we're going to pay out just yet. Okay. Now, benefits. I know that we talked briefly, but we said to start off, you were not going to be offering any benefits package to start off in the first few months of operation, and then as the enrollment goes up, you may offer some kind of benefits package.
Right.
Okay, so the first month of benefits are going to be 0. Okay, advertising and marketing. I think we're probably going to, let's just take 2% of your gross sales, of that $19,200, and we'll set that aside for advertising purposes.
Okay.
Okay, so if I take okay, that's going to be about $380. So go ahead and plug in $380 under advertising. Automobile expense, are you going to be transporting the kids anywhere, back and forth, that kind of thing?
After school services.
Okay. But that's not going to start, when were you going to start that?
I think I may start that in the second year though.
Okay, so first year, that second year that may be an expense, but for right now we're not gonna have that expense, correct? Okay, so 0 under auto expense. Contributions, you're not going to be doing any contributions probably the first year in business. Once you get established and you're making some money and you want to do some things where you're sponsoring a ball team or whatever it is, then we may do that. But first year we're going to hold off on doing any type of contributions. Now, charge cards. You're going to take charge cards, debit and credit cards, or you're simply going to take check?
I'm going to start off with just cash and checks.
Okay. Okay, and that's always something that you can add at some point. And your customers will tell you if that's needed or not. I know that most daycares right now do not take charge cards, but more and more as a percentage are starting to take charge cards. That's becoming the preferred method of payment. I've got my debit card, and that's it. Somebody doesn't take my debit card is hard for me to pay for much of anything. My wife generally has the checkbook. So, but like I said, as you're in business, that may be something that you look to add. If you start getting requests for charge cards, do you take debit cards, credit cards, that kind of thing, then you may add that. And usually, any money that you take in on a debit or credit card, by the time you average it out, it usually runs about 2% of whatever you swipe. So if somebody were to come up and hand you a card to pay for a week, then you swipe it and it's $100, it's probably going to cost you on average about $2. Okay, but nice thing about that is once it's approved, it's kind of guaranteed money. You don't have to worry about it bouncing or that type of thing. Okay.
Okay.
Dues and subscriptions. I don't think there's anything that you have to belong to in the daycare business, so 0 there. We're not shipping anything off, so nothing under freight. Okay, if you had a business where you were manufacturing something and shipping it off, and there was a freight expense in there, then we would probably plug that in there. Okay. Now, insurance. You're going to need to get a quote for insurance. And my suggestion, I know I gave you the contact information for a couple of insurance agents, and here's what I would do. I would tell them, hey, this is the business that I'm going to be going into. This is how many kids I think I'm going to have. This is where the business is going to be located. Ask them specifically, what insurance do you think that I need? What is your suggestion on the different types of coverages that I need? And then how much is it going to cost? And maybe go to 2 or 3 different agencies and get quotes from different people. And I compare what what do you suggest that I have, and then how much does it run? Okay? But we want to get some quotes in on that. Legal and accounting. And here, for a monthly expense, we're probably, with your type of business, we're more or less, we're more talking about accounting fees on a monthly basis as opposed to legal fees. Now, with the payroll system, are you going to run your own payroll, or are you going to let your CPA run the payroll? I think that we had discussed that you had kind of your plate was full running the daycare for the first year, and you thought maybe you would just be better off where you could have it where you call in the hours to your accountant. He runs the payroll and also handles all of the quarterly payroll forms and monthly deposit, that type of thing. Okay? So most likely, I think we're going to probably plug in, that's probably going to run you anywhere from 75, if you have somebody else run your payroll, it's probably going to run anywhere from 75 to 125 per month. Okay? So why don't we take an average, and why don't we put in $100 a month for an expense for legal and accounting, and that's really enough to pay your accountant to handle that payroll for you and anything else that you need. Okay? Office supplies, that's pens, paper, pencil, toner for your ink cartridges, that kind of thing. That's probably not going to be high, but why don't we put in about, let's say, $35 a month for that? Okay, now shop supplies. Shop supplies, that's going to be cleaning supplies, keep the daycare clean. It's going to be supplies for the kitchen. And I might include educational supplies in that. Anything to do with glue, glitter, paper, that kind of thing. So why don't we go higher than that? Why don't we say you're going to spend about on shop supplies? Let's go $200 a month on that. I just know that because I've done a bunch of daycares, and I kind of know what shop supplies run with your standard daycare. Okay, nothing under travel. Now, telephone. How many business lines do you think you're going to need?
2.
Okay. Now, you're also going to want the Wi-Fi. In other words, get that wireless modem with the internet and 2 phone lines. Okay, I know right now that's probably running anywhere from $200 to $225 a month. So why don't we let's plug in $225 a month right there. Okay. Utilities. We need to get an idea of what the utility bills are going to run on this place. Now, I know that there was another business in there for many years, correct? You can either go to the company that provides electrical service to that business, and they can kind of give you a history of what the utility bills ran, or if you can track down the owner, they may be able to, the previous owner or tenant in that location, they can probably tell you about what the utility bills ran. Okay. But I might just start with the utility company and say, hey, I'm looking to lease a space at this location. Can you give me an idea of what the utility bills were running with the previous tenant? Okay, and that'll give us an idea of what your utility bills are going to run. Okay, repairs, probably not. We're probably going to be a little bit in repairs. Why don't we set aside $50 a month for repairs? Tax license, that's more of a yearly fee, so we're not going to plug in a monthly number for that. Now, rent lease. At this point, we kind of have to, we still haven't decided on the location, so once we figure out the location, then we know how much that rent or lease is going to be. Okay? So we're still kind of waiting to get that number, so we really can't finish out this cash flow projection until we get that number. Okay? So we still need the rent or lease payment. Other expense would be something that we missed on here. If there was an expense that didn't fall into one of these categories, but we knew it was going to be an expense in the process of operating the business, that's where that would go. Now, debt service. Debt service is your monthly payment to the bank every month on the loan. So one of the things that we kind of have to do to go through and finish, so we can finish out this cash flow projection, is we need to figure out, okay, we need a quote for the insurance, right? We need to know how much that is. We need to get an idea of what the utility bills are going to be. And then, to finish out your cash flow, we need to know what the build-out is going to run. How much what's going to cost to go in and renovate the space. We need your equipment list that includes furniture and fixtures, and also starting inventory. So basically, we kind of need to get a sense of, okay, we're going to do the business, and how much are the renovations going to run? What are the furniture, fixtures, other fixed assets that would be kitchen equipment, baby beds, bookcases, all that kind of stuff. Okay, cost for the renovations, that type of thing. So to finish this thing out, really what we have to do is we have to get the location picked out so we can finish out the numbers. And we can't finish out the numbers until we know specifically what your renovations are going to run. Okay, and your equipment list and that type of thing.
Right.
Okay. And then once we have that, then we can go in here and we can plug in the rest of the expenses. So, what I need for you to do is, I think the sales number is pretty good. And then we need to go ahead and figure, material costs, what is the food going to run? And then, let me mark this right here. And this, I'm going to put a little dash about what I need for you to do some homework on. So we need to figure out the material cost, okay, and you know what that is. We need to get a quote for insurance. We need, I'd like to get an idea what the utility bills are. I can probably guess that pretty close, just based on how many square footage the building is and what you're going to be doing in there. But I might like to get that information. And finally, the debt service. We have to figure out, okay, how much money do we need to borrow to put everything in there and do it correctly, okay? And to get the debt service, we're going to need to get the contractor's build-out price, what it's going to cost to go in and renovate the space. And I'm going to need your equipment list, and then also probably the initial inventory, okay? Now, in addition to that, what we need is to figure out how much working capital you need, okay? And if you remember, working capital is by the time we put this whole thing together and you open your doors, there needs to be some money sitting in that business checking account for you to operate your business, okay? And usually what I like to do is to go through and figure out, okay, if we do the business, kind of what are the fixed expenses every month, and then kind of get that total and figure out, okay, we think you need X amount of working capital, to cover however many months worth of fixed expenses you have. Now, that being said, the more that you pre-sell, more spots you get reserved in your daycare, leading up to opening your doors, the less working capital that you need.
Right.
Okay? If we get to this first month and you have got, if your total number of kids that you can take is 96 and you've got 75, you probably don't need a whole lot of working capital. The business is going to cash flow very quickly. However, if we get to where things are a little bit tight, then you may need to plan for a little bit more working capital.
Right.
Okay? Okay, so business plan, the written description is done, and now we need to go through and finish out these numbers. Okay?
Okay.
So any questions?
None.
Okay. Well, you work on those, and once you get this a little bit farther along, give me a call, and we'll get together and finish this up, and then you'll be ready to go in and, number one, make the determination, yeah, I want to do this, or no, I don't. And then if you decide that you want to proceed, then we'll go ahead and finish everything up, and you'll be ready to go in and apply for the loan with the lender.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
All right, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.